Tonight on a special Etalk.
That's where the healing's gonna happen.
Representation.
So I think having an Indigenous female action hero is historic.
Truth.
We're all survivors of the residential school system. So the story is so much honoring us being here and then those that fought for us to be here.
And reconciliation.
That's really the goal for the documentary, is to help others who are non-Indigenous know what they can do to help move towards unity.
The Changemakers and the important conversations. Impact and Influence, a Truth and Reconciliation Day special begins right now. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this important episode. Tonight, I have a very special co-host. Our good friend and Etalk correspondent, Michaella Montana, is here with us from CTV Regina. Michaella, welcome back.
Tyrone, thank you for having me back. I'm feeling really good about this special.
It's the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, which is all about commemorating the history and legacy of residential schools, and we've put together some important and interesting stories. But first, we want to acknowledge we are visitors on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. Michaella, I want to ask you, what does this mean to you? What does this day mean to you at this point in time in history?
Well, this day is intended to recognize the horrific legacy of Canadian residential schools. This is a legacy, but not the final legacy. There are generations before me and generations who will come after me who will continue to rise despite what has happened to us. What has happened to us has made us stronger. Our survival and existence is proof of that. The negative impact fuels a positive impact, and that is what our legacy will be. Strength, resilience, perseverance, love, and laughter.
I absolutely love what you said about history and legacy. It's looking back, but then still having this hopeful outlook on life to come. Those are some powerful, powerful words, Michaella. And that balance is something we're striving for tonight. This show will not shy away from important and heavy conversations, but we're also going to celebrate the accomplishment of some incredible changemakers.
And we're going to start things off with actress and advocate Jessica Matten and our discussion on allyship.
Jessica, it's so great to have you on Etalk and to have an interview with you.
Well, it's lovely to see you, Michaella, and I'm so happy we're doing this together.
Jessica is definitely one to watch. She stars in the 70-set drama series Dark Winds. She's been profiled in Vogue and Women's Wear Daily. She's a passionate advocate for the Indigenous community, and she's the perfect guest for tonight's discussion.
What are some concrete steps that people can take on a path toward reconciliation?
I think for non-Indigenous people, I think it's just about being open to shifting your perspective. I think when you remain open to educating yourselves on the issue, then you just come more from a place of compassion. If you just take the key step of making an internal decision to be open to understanding, I think that's your segue into bridging the gap for all of us.
What does authentic allyship look like?
Authentic allyship is really just changing your internal perspective. In a way, I think that's the better route than being mechanical and just doing something because you think it's the right thing to do. But if you don't have a true understanding of why you're doing what you're doing, then honestly, it's a quick fix. So I find when you come from a place of understanding, then it's going to fuel your sense of purpose even more.
And when it comes to Jessica's own purpose, she's made it her personal mission to empower Indigenous youth through her film academy.
Well, let's talk about the Indigenous Film Academy that you co-founded. How does this help further your goal to empower youth and empower Indigenous people?
I've opened up the Native Film Academy out of Siksika Nation Treaty 7 in Alberta. And, you know, aside from acting my entire life, I've always been working in the Indigenous communities across Canada, in particular with the Indigenous youth, and really helping them to not only get inspired, but give them practical tools to apply to their lives, to get employment, to break out of their cycles. And I know how hard it is to break out of cycles based on, you know, residential schools and the 60 scoop and all the intergenerational trauma that our people are very much still fighting to break out of and heal. For the last 3 months, we've had our students in an intensive 5 days a week, 8 hours a day program. So it's all encompassing. It's not just acting, it's directing, producing, writing. I want to see our people really be empowered. I want to see our people get employed. So I find this is the key. And when you empower someone through employment, their entire world shifts because now they have a goal for themselves. And when they have a goal for themselves, then the ripple effect is they have a goal for their families too. And this is how you really heal nations.
I love that so much. Thank you so much, Jessica.
Thank you, Michaella. It's such a pleasure. It's good to see you, sister.
I had a very inspiring chat with Jessica. She's up to so many incredible things, and she is such a force.
No, absolutely. And what Jessica has done with her Film Academy is really exceptional. A big part of the path to reconciliation is a focus on uplifting Indigenous talent. And she's really helping so many take up space in an industry that hasn't always been so inclusive.
It's a necessary and ongoing process, and it can't just happen once. It needs to continue to happen. Our next story is about another star who's doing so much for representation. Her name is Amber Midthunder, and she's breaking ground as an Indigenous action star.
There is no shortage of reasons that having a character like Nadu be the action hero in a movie like this is an incredible feat. Having an Indigenous female action hero is historic.
Set in the 1700s, Amber plays a woman trying to prove herself as a hunter when she's pitted against an alien in Prey, a prequel to the Predator franchise.
I'm trying to protect you. Protect me from what?
The movie was filmed in Alberta. This is Amber's first starring role, and what I find really interesting is that she said in the past she didn't want to take on Indigenous roles because good representation is rare, but she credits the film's director, Dan Trachtenberg, for his commitment to on-screen accuracy.
A huge thing that made this film unique was how collaborative Dan is and how kind and grounded and open. And from the beginning, he was so open to, especially with culture stuff, but with anything, like hearing everybody and wanting to know, like, if you have any ideas of little things that can be incorporated or this stuff or this thing, like just so open and so willing to learn and hear people. So I am so grateful for that experience.
This is a great example of reconciliation, of moving beyond inclusion to collaboration. This type of action is what authentic allyship looks like.
Reconciliation, I love that. Another huge part of reconciliation is truth. Listening to the truth, learning from the truth, and this means sitting with some horrific truths. And there's a special art project that explores this all head on.
The point of the piece is to stand in solidarity for all of the truths that have been unearthed since 2020. Right. Largely tied into, of course, indigeneity, truth and reconciliation, which is why we're launching it on the 30th in solidarity of the promises that were made and weren't kept. And also, it's in solidarity of Black Lives Matters, you know, of all of the injustices that have been existing in Canada since the 1800s. And we're holding space to say, no, this truth needs to be seen and heard again and again and again.
The truth is a physical and social movement, and I get a sneak peek of what will become a monumental 3D sculpture mounted on a 55-foot flatbed truck. The art installation will travel to multiple locations in Toronto and will be on display at Nuit Blanche.
I approached my dear friend Quest because we wanted to create an artwork that invited community in with a purpose and with the reason to connect. And so Quest and I reflected on what is the one word that people need to sit with, you know, people need to really think about in order to connect with themselves and each other. And so truth came forward. And it was also like kind of like street vernacular. It was sort of like you're hard, but can you actually sit with your truth?
Right. The piece is a collaboration of cultures and intergenerational wisdom, and is a special project for contributing artist Philip Cote. Do you believe that this is an opportunity for whoever gets to experience truth? Is there truth in that?
For so long, for 500 years, Indigenous people have been marginalized and our narratives have been silenced. In recent years and times, Indigenous artists and elders and that have been bringing our narratives out into the open. What's great about this collaboration is that there's two narratives going on here. You know, because Quest has a narrative too about his existence as an artist and a Western person living on this land here, and I'm bringing in that Indigenous perspective to bring harmony and balance.
I also had the privilege to contribute to this vision.
We thought of you because of your passion, how passionate you are, and a public spokesperson for that, which is hard to do in a certain arena, you know, because we want to make sure this piece hits home and it hits diverse communities, music communities, hip hop communities, fashion communities, pop culture, and you are a perfect example of a leader in the multi-dimensional realms. Going back to what I like to do is really hit all the communities and
bring it all together.
Such an honor to be a part of this project. I got a chance to work with an ensemble of talent from different disciplines. And what makes it so special is that we're all working towards one common goal, which is telling the truth.
There are so many ways to approach truth, especially the legacy of Canada's residential school system. And our next guest, Marika Sila, is exploring how to move forward.
I've been stuck asking myself, what's next? I've been trying to find solutions and ways that we can move forward in a good way.
You got to tell me a bit about this documentary that you're working on regarding residential schools.
I just felt like it is an important time for us to highlight and elevate Indigenous voices and ask the community members, the influencers, the leaders, and the elders what they think needs to happen in order for us to move forward in a good way.
What's next on Canada's RedPath to Reconciliation is the name of Marika's debut documentary. Committing to do a project like this, does it take a toll on you emotionally?
My dad is a 13-year Indian residential school survivor, so I am greatly affected by it every single day. That's really the goal for the documentary, is to help others who are non-Indigenous know what they can do to help move towards unity. You are stronger than you think.
And when Marika is not making a mark as an activist, she's in the spotlight as a stunt performer. You have some amazing videos, amazing content.
I specialize in stunts and special skills for film and TV, including nunchucks, staff, sword handling, and fire spinning, but it all started with hoop dancing for me.
How much time and training goes into all that you do?
It was a matter of just doing it every single day and picking it up, whether it's for 10 minutes or whether it's for 2 hours. The trick is just to show up every single day.
Yes, this is Marika in action. Her IG is packed with impressive moves, which landed her a gig in the hit series Midnight Mass and a starring role in the horror flick Ditch.
It's outside.
All before finding her way to becoming a finalist on The Amazing Race Canada. You have so much going on, this growing resume. What's next for you and how can we cheer you on?
That documentary will be released in the fall, and other than that, there's a couple other projects that will be coming out in the meantime. And I'm super excited about those, but I have to keep my mouth shut about them.
You just got to promise to come back and give us the tea once you can.
I would love to.
Recently premiering at TIFF, Bones of Crows is a movie told through the eyes of Cree matriarch Aline Spears as she survives Canada's residential school system and continues to navigate the trauma of systemic racism and sexual abuse. A note, the following story may be triggering for some viewers.
Things are too good. I'm just scared that things will be taken away.
Bones of Crows, I want to talk to you about your inspiration for the story. Where did this come from?
I think all of our families have members that went to residential school and survived. But it was really just paying respect for my mother and my aunties and my uncles and being,
Yes.
you know, having this time and place to be able to do it was, you know.
And we're all survivors of the residential school system. And so every single one of us have been affected in one way or another. So the story is so much honoring us being here and then those that fought for us to be here.
Aline's traumatic journey from childhood to motherhood in Bones of Crows
I'm just so happy. So happy.
is a testament to the resilience of Indigenous people everywhere.
This is just the beginning of what we're capable of when people start listening and when people start lifting up Indigenous voices. We've been fighting for this our whole lives, and I hope that this film starts this conversation and people are curious and open and watch this film and know that that we are still here.
And for me, I think this movie puts the truth and reconciliation, and hopefully what we're gonna see is those people who are watching and those people who are open, bridge the gap that is there between other peoples and Indigenous peoples. I think that is what I look forward to.
It's always one of those days where you go, okay, this is the one day. And obviously with this project, we've been living it in different ways for a while. But I do think that we're at the place where we're at truth. And I think we're still there. We have to work harder at it to get to reconciliation, and we can't do that without the truth. And it's taken a long time to get there.
Yeah.
So far in this episode, we've talked about the importance of representation, the need to listen to stories, to learn the hard truths, and how allyship is key.
Yes, and reconciliation is about even more. It's a continual process with opportunities for authentic appreciation, and that brings us to our next story.
Yes, Totem Design House is a fashion and home decor brand that produces Northwest Coast apparel, jewelry, and art, and we learn how the company is making strides to end the appropriation of First Nations art.
We have women's wear collection that's 100% eco-friendly, made locally, and we also carry a line of jewelry. I grew up in the Native art world, and I've seen every type of exploitation that's happened. It's largely non-Indigenous people who've profited from our art forms. So hiring everybody that we can that's Indigenous, so we're creating a local economy. We produce as much as we can in-house, and so we literally look at every aspect of our business and infuse our own Indigenous values into what we do.
Erin's partner Andy knows the effect of having his work exploited, having designed the most popular Every Child Matters logo a while back.
I wanted to do something to just kind of give back, and that design was kind of taken on by the official Every Child Matters for that year. And what we found was a lot of unscrupulous businesses were taking up this design and offering it for sale for pure profit. I don't make money off of the design, and if you're going to use this design, that you donate your profits to a non-profit Indigenous society, because that's where the healing's going to happen.
And when it comes to healing, art is the best medicine.
When I started doing artwork, I really wanted to kind of do a contemporary take on our art forms. So when I started doing artwork, I really wanted it to kind of reflect how we see the world through contemporary eyes. As Indigenous people, we resonate a lot with, say, the Star Wars kind of universe of dealing with the empire that comes and takes over our territories. So when I use these kind of pop cultural references, I use them to help tell the story about colonization and our experiences with imperialism.
We now want to introduce you to Shanice, who appeared last season on One Queen, Five Queers. She's dedicated to educating on allyship and Black and Indigenous solidarity, and she's using her platform to spark change.
My fat body has taught me to love myself.
I'd love to know about your 1Q, 5Q experience.
It was a whole new world. I'd never been on a TV set like that before. Sometimes we think of TV as this very white space, but to see all of these racialized people that were doing all of this work to make the show great was absolutely amazing. And I think what I brought to the show definitely was a different perspective as an Afro-Indigenous person, as a fat femme, what it means to live in this body in a queer society. I think every time I talk about the things that I've been through, I find another bit of strength in myself that I didn't necessarily know was there before.
Strong, bold, passionate, Shanice is a force. She's a writer, an educator, and her story is a powerful one. I'm imagining that this was a journey, a process to self-acceptance. Can you talk about that a little bit?
I actually was very thin in my high school years, and I had a lot of self-esteem issues. And it wasn't until I gained weight and I really had to learn to love myself in a society that oftentimes tells fat people, and especially fat femmes, that they aren't deserving of their humanity. It was about telling myself every day that I was beautiful, that I really found that love in myself in that journey.
Indigenous children are still being taken, with there being more of them in the foster care system than there ever was at the height of the residential school system.
Can you tell us about the work that you do with Ashkenaz Project?
I've been doing class talks, which have been absolutely amazing. I go in and I talk to these youth about Indigenous history and Black history and what it means to be on these lands. And these youth are just so ready to advocate and fight for equality and are just inspiring me. And then being an Afro-Indigenous person, I think, again, like in a society where you're supposed to fit into one little box, really learning that I can be both Black and Native and exist in this body has really allowed me to find my identity and stand firm in that.
Part of representation, though, is presentation. We often express ourselves through our appearance. I wanted to ask you, if it's okay to ask you, about the symbols that you have tattooed on your body and what they mean to you.
Most of my tattoos really symbolize different parts of myself. So I have some tattoos on my arm that are really about self-love. This one's one of my favorite. It says, "This body is mine to cherish and love."
Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And a special, special thank you to Michaella for sharing so much incredible wisdom and insight.
Thank you so much for having me and for holding a space for these important conversations to happen. If you're looking for more information on the projects and individuals we profiled tonight, be sure to check out etalk.ca.
All right, we will see you next time. One love.